Hey, welcome to episode 102 of Scar Bearers. I'm Chris D.T. Gordon. As always, it's a pleasure and a blessing to have you here with me today. And with me today, though you can't see them, are Nate and Britton Barron working their magic on the backside of this channel, making sure I look as pretty as I can when these recordings come out. If you want them to work their magic on your projects, please reach out to them at Nate Barron. Well, folks, it is spring when you're hearing this, but that doesn't mean that winter is behind us in terms of all those dark places, all those dark thoughts that we might have, those negative thoughts, that what I call personal bacteria. And if you find you have those negative thoughts invading your mind, please reach out to me. Let's talk about how the attitude of gratitude, or TAG, can help you increase your gratitude, positivity, and resilience. You can reach out to me at chrisdtgordon.com so we can start a conversation. I can help you out. I can help your school, organization, whoever can benefit from the message of TAG. I want to help them out. So please let me know. Again, that's chrisdtgordon.com. Well, folks, I'm joined by my new friend, Melissa Hergert. Sorry, I was
That's
like,
okay.
oh, it's not Herbert and Gerbert's from here in Minnesota. I should know that. Melissa Hergert. How are you today, Melissa?
Good. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to have you here and finally meet you. We've been chatting online for a number of months now, and I know we had one possible date that had to be postponed, but now we're here. I'm so happy to connect with you. Now,
Yeah.
you and I are both involved in the Unleash You Now Facebook group, and we've met through that, and we're also fellow speakers, but you use your message in a slightly different way than I do. And you also serve in a couple different capacities as a speaker. So why don't you go ahead and start there and tell us, how do you speak? What do you serve people?
Yeah. So I'm still kind of new to speaking, but when I speak about a service that I offer, and that's a brain therapy. So I don't just talk about mindset, which is very important, but I actually separate the mind and the brain, and I really focus on the brain health, the physical brain health, because that's what we offer to help people improve anything neurological, like ADHD and anxiety and concussion rehab, things like that. So when I talk, I just educate about that and the service that we offer.
So step back a little bit. You said you separated the brain from the mind. And many times we will use those phrases interchangeably. So what is the difference between the brain and the mind?
So the way I describe it, and hopefully this makes sense, the best way to describe it is like a computer hardware and software, right? So you have a computer, and the motherboard runs all the systems on your computer. That's your physical brain, the mushy, squishy thing floating around in your skull. The software is what's downloaded on us all of our life. And then how we run that software, how we use it is kind of up to us. And that's kind of how we control our thoughts and take what was downloaded or what we learned and use that in a good way or a negative way. And what happens is sometimes bad software, right, traumas and things like that, can affect the hardware and slow it down or speed it up or just cause little bugs. And so neurofeedback, what we offer, is helping strengthen that hardware. So as software and stress and life happens, that the hardware is able to process everything that's being downloaded. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a fantastic way of explaining it, because we don't call a brain set, we call a mindset. And to use your analogy of a computer, your computer can run any system that's designed for it. Yeah. But depending on what kind of system you run in it, it's going to affect how it runs.
Right.
So I greatly appreciate that analogy. So what got you into the neurofeedback lane of this kind of service?
Yeah, neurofeedback, it's been around since the 60s, actually. And then during the 70s, 80s, they're like, it's got a little woo-woo. And so people are like, not sure about this. And now there's more and more research from large universities that show the efficacy of it. And so I actually went to a chiropractic school. I wanted to be a chiropractor all my life. I always wanted to be able to help heal people or give them the tools that their body can heal. And so, I went to chiropractic school and decided I don't want to be a chiropractor. So I
A lot
went
of
and
work.
yeah, I didn't do all of it, but I did do a full year and I was passing. And it wasn't like I was failing. I mean, I enjoyed it and I love chiropractic. I still love it. I highly recommend it to all my clients and family and friends. But I worked for a guy who had neurofeedback in his office, and then I got certified under him. And I'm like, oh, this is what I love, and it's amazing. And so I left about a year and a half after working for him and started my own business.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a couple of friends who are chiropractors, and they go through an inordinate amount of schooling to
Yeah.
become a chiropractor. So I give them all the respect, because that is a lot of studying to do.
It's a lot. It is a
So
lot. You really got to go. Like, if you're going to go, you're going to go full time. It's very difficult to have a job and do all that while you do it. So,
exactly. Exactly. And
mhm.
so I do want to take us back though, Melissa, because we are the sum of all the parts before us, all our past experiences, and to know where to appreciate where you've come so far in terms of the neurofeedback uh, industry. What brought you here? And so if you could take us back to growing up and what you experienced and how that has influenced you today.
Yeah. So this is something I'm getting more comfortable with, is sharing my story, because I feel like everyone has a story, absolutely, that they could share and people can um, benefit from hearing. And but I almost looked at it like, oh, what's the point of me sharing my story? Everyone has a story. There's some that had way worse than me. I don't even want to share my story. But a good friend of mine, Bobby Jones, is like, you need to start telling your story more. And his story is worse than mine. I'm like, okay, but then you can't really compare, right? So everyone
Exactly.
has their own trauma. So I grew up, and this is the funny thing. People think, so I'm originally from San Diego. I live in Atlanta now, north of the city a little bit, but I grew up in San Diego, and everyone who hears that, they think like, oh, you're from California, especially San Diego, you must have money and you're rich. And the reality is San Diego, just like every other city, has the hood or the ghettos, right? Like, where the people that are making it are, struggling pretty much. And so I grew up with a single mom who was originally from Atlanta, and she had my brother and sister here in Atlanta, and then me in San Diego. And one really big weird thing, part of our, it's not weird, it's special to me, but my sister is my oldest sister, and she was born here in Atlanta in the 70s, and my mom is a white woman, and she in the 70s in Atlanta had a black daughter who is my sister. So
Hmm.
she's my big sister. So she had a dad one time with the dad, and has this little baby girl. So she's from a very rich part of Atlanta. It's Buckhead, and she's from a
Yep, I've
very
heard of
well
Buckhead.
known, Buckhead, and
Yep.
from a very well known name. And she was my mom was the oldest of five. So she was like considered the black sheep after that. Like, she lost her mom young. She just turned to this wild child, had my sister, experienced lots of racism in the time, and decided that she needed to go across the country to California. She had my sister, my brother, who me and him have the same dad, and then went to California, and I was born. My dad, who's the same dad as me and my brother, was actually a heroin addict
Hmm.
and followed her out there. That's how I was born out in California. So he was not a big part of my life. He was a little bit a part of my brother and sister's life, but not a good part. Like, it's almost better that he wasn't part of my life, because he was very abusive towards my mom, physically, mentally, and did drugs. And so he only came around every once in a while, and I never expected anything from him. When he did show up, he would bring like stolen goods, and it was a mess. It was just like whatever. And so that's what I saw as a man in my life. And then my mom got remarried to my stepdad, who was ex-military. My dad was also ex-military, and he was an alcoholic, and he died when I was 15 from an
Oh gosh.
accident. Yeah. Well, this is the thing. My mom would tell him like, leave the house. You can't be drunk in the house. And he was like not a mean drunk. He was actually very kind and turned kind of like to a baby. And my mom was like, get out of the house. So we went to a hotel room in downtown San Diego, and I don't know exactly what happened, but supposedly there was a traumatic fall, and like the bone in his nose went up, and yeah. So it was a total accident, unfortunately found deceased in the hotel room. And I was 15. So, and he was the closest to like a normal dad I ever had. And it was very difficult having a dad after 12 years to like accept him and be in our home. But when he wasn't drinking, he was an amazing man. I mean, he was so smart, so loving, so giving. He was a great person if he wasn't drinking. So those are the two examples of men that I had. And so it taught me, well, I thought I was learning what relationships were supposed to look like, which was always drama, always insecurities, always negative communication. And so for quite a few years of my young adult life, that's what I was in, relationships like that. And the last one I was in became physically abusive, and we were living in Las Vegas. So my best friend, who's now my business partner, gave me some money and said, buy a plane ticket to Atlanta, where my mom was here with my grandfather. So that's how I ended up here. And I wasn't planning to stay here, but I restarted my whole life here. And that's where I'm at now.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
First of all, congratulations on, being able to escape that situation and restart your life. So you fly into Atlanta, you have a little bit of money, seed money. What do you do next?
I had no money.
Oh, you had no money.
Gave me enough money for my ticket.
Oh, okay.
Luckily, my mom was here with my grandfather, so I had a place to sleep. But I brought my suitcase and a dog. I left my car behind. I left my studio apartment behind that I had in San Diego, and I just left it all behind. And everything was my car was repoed, everything, because I had no money. It was ridiculous. I mean, I was just in this very vulnerable state with a man that just kind of took control of that insecurity and weakness part of my life and lost everything. Obviously, I had choices, but I was in, a bad spot. So when I got here, I stayed with my mom for a little bit, but I'm a go-getter. I cannot stand like counting on people. And plus, coming from that relationship where I had stuff and lost it because of that decision, I was like, well, I'm going to get right back to work. So I got a job, cocktail waitressing. And I was like, you know what? I should probably just enroll in chiropractic school, because that's what I've always wanted to do. The best chiropractic school is here in Atlanta, Life University. So it only took me a few months to do all that. And I got a job, got my own apartment within a few months, and then started school. And since then, I mean, since then, just so you know, I moved here in 2007. So 14 years almost. And I now own 7 neurofeedback clinics across the country. Wow. Yeah. And started with nothing.
Okay. So that was a bit of a jump between starting chiropractic school and owning 7 businesses. So walk us through that, please, because I know before I hit record, you said you didn't say your name was Dr. Melissa. So.
I'm not a doctor. So what happened was I went to chiropractic school. I did a year of it, and I was like, oh, I don't want to be a chiropractor. I love chiropractic. I don't want to be one, though. I'm very much about follow your passion. And if you're doing something you hate, you need to really realize like there's so much potential in life that you could have just by making certain choices and giving yourself a try and a chance and pushing those fears down and just go for it. So that's what I did. I decided I didn't want to be a chiropractor. I quit school after a year of very high student loans, but that's okay. I started working for a chiropractor because that's what my background was in, and he had neurofeedback in his office. So I got certified in neurofeedback and started working for him for a year and a half after school. And then I realized I have to open my own neurofeedback clinic. So I did. I had $4,000 of a student loan check, and I started my business. Now it's a lot more than $4,000 to start a neurofeedback clinic, but that's what I started with. And luckily the company I worked with had a payment plan. So, So that's what I did. I started my office. I grew it. At one point I grew it to a full wellness center. So I had like chiropractic, acupuncture, massage, infrared sauna, neurofeedback all under one roof. And then I realized that was like not my passion to have all that. I just needed to stick to neurofeedback. So I actually closed it, rebranded. And since 2019 up until now, I've opened 5 of the 7 offices.
Okay. Now, where are those offices located?
4 in Atlanta area, north of Atlanta. So 4 up here where I live. 1 in San Diego. So I took it back to my hometown with my best friend that bought me the airplane ticket. Mm-hmm. We started that one 5 years ago, along with starting our nonprofit. I'll talk about that in a second. 1 in Las Vegas with my sister-in-law, who is Hispanic. And so we see all Spanish-speaking clients there, which is amazing. And then just this month in January, 2 weeks ago, I opened up in Georgetown, Delaware, in Michael Faber and Dr. Vinny Faber's office.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are, it's being through, Unleash You Now, those connections really do pay off.
Oh, yeah.
So
definitely.
Did Michael approach you about this, or did you step up to him?
Well, they actually let me speak at their very first event. They had never met me, and they let me be a speaker at their event in Mexico. So I spoke about it, and they're like, this is some cool stuff. And then I did some brain assessments on them. And Dr. Vinny was like, yeah, we have a room available here. So why don't you bring it here?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I go up once a month and I do the initial brain assessments. And then we have ways that people could do the training at home so they don't have to come to an office.
Okay. So yeah, say if I wanted this service, what is something that would prompt me to explore this possibility?
Well, this service can be for anyone that either has symptoms or just wants better health brain function, just peak performance.
Symptoms of what?
Symptoms, neurological symptoms. So what that falls under are the common ones that we all hear about people talking about or experiencing: insomnia, anxiety, depression, ADHD is neurological symptom, concussions like memory loss, and cognitive issues like learning disabilities. All those are neurological symptoms the brain controls. So we do a recording of the brain function, like as if someone were to get a sleep study, but it's not a sleep study. We're just recording the brain activity while they're sitting here. And that's going to help us figure out what areas of the brain are not functioning properly.
Okay. Now, is it like an MRI when you go in and they scan you?
It's non-invasive. Let me show you real quick. I'm stepping away real quick.
All right.
I put this cap on the person's head, and you see all the little white dots?
Yes.
Those are sensors that record the brainwave activity. So we're just recording the electric signals in the brain to figure out how those neurons in the brain are actually firing, because they might be firing too fast in some areas, too slow in some areas, kind of idle in some other areas. And when the brain's not functioning properly, like a hardware, processing fast enough or slow enough, then symptoms happen like ADHD, anxiety, things like that.
Okay. And from those readings, from those sensors, you can find out what possibility, what are the possibilities of the trouble. And then say, for example, someone does show symptoms that align with ADHD, what's next up?
So then they do the actual neurofeedback training. So neurofeedback's a form of biofeedback. Like I said, it's been around many years. Biofeedback helps us control our heart rate, our temperature, stress, things like that. Neurofeedback helps us control our actual brain processing speeds. So what happens is they come into the office. I'm going to show you. I'm in my office right now. So you see the little chair and the TV there?
Yes.
Okay. So they come in, they sit there. We don't do cognitive counseling. We're not counselors. We're neurofeedback technicians or neurofeedback therapists. I'm board certified. We put little sensors on the area of the head that needs training. And those sensors are picking up the brain activity. They're not putting anything in or taking anything out. They're just picking up the activity. It's then telling our software how and where that brain activity is functioning, and then telling the screen in front of the person where the brain should be. And the way it does that is through audio and visual feedback. So what happens is they're watching their favorite show. Every time their brain goes into the proper brain activity that we want more of, the screen in front of them turns bright. So it's giving the person a positive feedback of bright screen. They could see the show and the volume goes up so they could hear it. So the brain is actually controlling the loop of feedback and learning how to regulate itself to get more of the positive feedback. And that creates the word that everyone hears about is neuroplasticity. It creates new pathways and connections in the brain to work in a healthier way. So it's all based off of, remember psychology, Pavlov's dogs?
Yes.
It's all based off of that same training. You give a positive feedback with a stimulus, and then that creates a new behavior that usually you wouldn't think you'd be able to control, but you can control how your brain regulates itself just by teaching it how to do it. So that's what we do.
So ultimately, with that device you were just showing me, you could essentially control what comes on the screen.
Pretty much. Your brain is in control of the brightness or darkness of the screen.
Okay. So basically, you're training people to become remote controls.
No, they can't change the channel. Okay. The volume goes up and down.
I was so hoping.
Yeah. The volume, yes. The brightness, yes.
Take that next step. Well, that is fascinating, Melissa. And so are you looking towards expanding this to other parts of the country?
Oh, yeah. I mean, since that's kind of my business model. My business is called Brain Train Centers. And what we do is we find locations where it might be a healthcare provider, like a counselor, a chiropractor, a nurse practitioner, and they might have an extra room and they want to offer a service that ties in all of their services. And we run our business within their business. So all my offices are inside of other wellness centers.
Okay.
So then we have like a full array of services that the clients can be offered to make sure that they're getting the healthiest they could be.
And then you don't have to worry about those other services.
No.
You can just focus on the neural pathways and increasing that neuroplasticity.
Exactly. And we all work together, all refer to each other. And not every client is going to use all of our services. It's just great to have that there.
Exactly. So what's one of the greatest success stories you've experienced with with this neurofeedback system?
Okay, I'm going to share two. The first one, let me explain. Neurofeedback was created for seizure disorders. That's what it originally was created for. And in the 60s, they realized like if you can decrease a certain brain activity and increase a certain one at the top middle part of your sensory part of the brain, that seizures would either decrease or stop completely. And they did research on, it was very sad. They did it on cats because they gave the cats gas and then did neurofeedback and then realized the ones that did neurofeedback, the seizures didn't happen anymore, but the ones that didn't get it, they still have the seizures. So there's no placebo effect with seizures, which is pretty amazing, right? So that's what it was created for. I get this family that calls me. This is pretty new into my business, and I'm maybe like 2 years in. I haven't worked with anyone with seizures yet, but I get a call. It's a mom who they moved here from Florida. They lived about an hour and a half from my office, and they called every neurofeedback between their house and me. And none of the neurofeedback providers would see them because they only wanted to work with people with ADHD, which is like my least favorite because most people think they have ADHD and they don't. But that's a whole nother time. Anyways,
not judging people with ADHD.
No, not at all. But people are very confused about what ADHD truly is, and what anxiety with attention issue is, or depression with attention. It's very different. And the medication doesn't work for everyone because you may not actually have ADHD. You have attention issue because of something underneath, right? So, and that's what we could see on these scans that we do. We could see how the brain is functioning and what it correlates to. But so they come in. I'm like, yeah, let's work with him. So he was having a seizure every hour for a minute straight, pretty much every day. He's 11 years old.
Wow.
Doing, horrible, sad. He wanted to play sports. He wanted to do better in school. He couldn't. So they come to me, and this is before we had home unit options. So they would drive to my office 3 times a week, an hour and a half here, hour and a half home. They got to about 40 sessions, and he was down to having 2 seizures a week, and it was during his sleep, not even during the day. So that was like the most amazing testimonial of super awesome. No medication. He had even had surgery on his brain before seeing me to try to get the seizures to stop. And they got worse after that. So pretty amazing when our brains can learn how to function properly, what could happen. The other amazing one is I had a 24-year-old male, had been on ADHD meds since he was in 2nd grade. So that's like 8 years old.
Yeah.
From 8 to 24 time. On ADHD meds. And of course, as you grow, your medication has to increase. You have to change it. All this, right? Lots of side effects throughout his life. He still had trouble in school, all of it. He did 30 sessions with me, and with his psychiatrist's permission, they started to lower his meds. He is completely off still, and it's been 7 years. He's been completely off his meds. And this is the thing, like he worked at a gun store, he had angry outbursts, and that wasn't like a lot of people do, but a lot of the side effects he was having were from the medication. He was on the highest dose you could take of ADHD meds. Like there was nothing higher. And we slowly worked him off using neurofeedback to help retrain his brain to work properly.
Wow. Congratulations. Those are some incredible stories.
Yes.
And, when you think about the individual lives you have changed, not for those young men solely, but for their families.
Yes. It's amazing. I love it. It's my passion. Even after 9 years, I still want to be in here with clients. And that's when you know you love something. And then it just gets me more excited that I get to bring in my best friend and my sister-in-law and people like Dr. Vinnie Faber to have it at her office in little Georgetown, Delaware, just being able to help people in different communities. I was just up there a few weeks ago and a man with Parkinson's came in, and there's some research that shows that it helps with the symptoms of Parkinson's and will help decrease some of that sensory instability that comes along with it. And so we're going to see if we can help him. And so it's exciting to just be able to help and bring people along with me.
Yeah, that's when you're in the right field, when you are serving people and you're doing it authentically, and you might have bad days, but you want to keep doing it.
Yes.
And so that's phenomenal. So you quickly mentioned that you had home units. Now, I didn't want to spend too much time on this, but tell me about those home units. How can people use them in this in the privacy and safety and security of their own home?
Yeah, so it's really cool. There's a lot of like gimmicky things out there, especially now that brain function is getting more popular to talk about, and mental health is very popular to talk about. There's like little headbands you could wear. That's not real neurofeedback. I'm not saying they can't help, but neurofeedback should be customized for that person's brain. And that's what we do. So we have units that completely sync with our clinical system here at the office. And we set the protocol in these little units that come with a laptop. So instead of them coming to the office and putting the sensors on, we train them how to do it at home. And they use our little system for 6 to 8 weeks and do training at home daily instead of having to drive to an office a few times a week. So pretty awesome.
No, that's a great option, especially now in the midst of a pandemic when people don't want to go into public.
Yeah.
How long have you had that option?
So I've had that option since before COVID, but during COVID and quarantine, I only had 2 systems. I now have 8. Wow. And they are rented out all the time. I mean, even the reason I'm in Georgetown just once a month is because that's the way our business is up there. People don't need to come to the office at all, except for the initial assessment, because it's like not even the ones that are worried about quarantine and things like that, but mainly because of the convenience of it. And it might be the whole family that uses it, which is really fun when the whole family trains and just the changes for everyone in the family. So our goal by the end of this year is to have 20 units available to rent out.
Wow. Okay. I hope you do reach that goal, because that can really benefit so many people.
Absolutely.
So, Melissa, where can people reach out to you if they want to find out more about you or your business?
Okay. Well, of course, if you want to friend me on Facebook, do that and maybe write a message that you watch this, show. Or of course, you could go to the website, which is braintraincentersinc.com. And that's going to give you all the locations we are in, all the phone numbers according to the location. And we will be glad to help anyone or answer any questions. Or we could also connect you with any of our colleagues, because obviously we're not in every state, but I have colleagues that I trust in other states that I would refer to.
So braintraincentersinc.com.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm a gratitude guy. That's what I talk about. So I'm going to ask you, Melissa, what is something in your journey that you have found that you are surprisingly grateful for?
Oh, it sounds crazy, but I'm actually grateful for the person in Las Vegas that I needed to get away from. We're actually acquaintances now, and both of us have changed completely. And apologies have been made and forgiveness has been. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to know that person and to experience what I did and grow from it.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I am appreciative that you're able to experience that.
Yeah.
Because so many people aren't. And having that growth and that growth mindset to move forward and still see the positive aspects of that person.
Yeah.
Is a true gift.
Yeah, definitely.
So Melissa, I'm down to my final question here, and I've given you a little time to think about it. What is your favorite dinosaur?
Man. Okay, I gotta tell you something. When I was a little girl, my mom used to work at the ICR, it was the Institute for Creation Research, and they had some really cool dinosaur skeletons in there, and they had some live animals too. But the one, am I saying it right? The Brontosaurus?
Brontosaurus, yes.
That's the one I've always loved. I love that one. And what's crazy is I just watched with my 3-year-old The Good Dinosaur. Have you watched that movie?
Yep, I've seen that.
Yeah, we watched it just this past weekend and I love it. I love that movie and I love those dinosaurs. They're the nicest.
Well, I guess, the timing is perfect for that.
Yeah.
So Melissa, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with me. It's all, it's been great to get to know you a little better. And I look forward to getting to know you even better as time goes on.
Definitely. And thank you for having me. And I'm excited for this friendship.
Excellent. So as am I. So folks, reach out to Melissa. You can reach her at braintraincentersinc.com. There will be the link in the show notes. You can reach her on Facebook as well. And as I am not always on Facebook, otherwise I wouldn't have a job, but I'm on there as well. You can find me at chrisdtgordon.com. And that's where you can find me in my speaking message of the Attitude of Gratitude, chrisdtgordon.com. You can go download a free tag one sheet to practice tag on your own in your office or in your home. You can maybe check out the merch store and grab a nice sweatshirt here. The Tag Explainer sweatshirt. It's nice and comfy. Keeps me really warm here in Minnesota. So reach out to me in that way. And as always, remember to like, subscribe, and share these messages of hope and inspiration. And you might learn something about neural pathways, and someone might want to know that. So share this episode especially. But folks, as always, thank you so much for being here today. Please have a fantastic day. And remember to pass on perfection and go for greatness.